Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit more in depth about how my boyfriend and I train our cane corso. Our main goal with training King is that he's listening out of respect and that he's not necessarily only listening when he has a reward or when he gets a treat. When we took him home around 2 months old, our main method for training King was positive reinforcement. Just a little bit of background, positive reinforcement means that you are praising all of the good things that your dog is doing.
Heel. Yes, good boy.
An example would be if you say sit and the dog sits right down. Good boy, good sit. That's what we always say to King. We try really hard to include what he did right. So instead of just saying good boy, we always tell him good sit, good down, good come. We just want him to know why we're praising him. The other side of positive reinforcement is the negative behaviors that your dog does, and the goal in this type of training method would just be to ignore the behaviors in order to let the dog know that you're not praising him for what he's doing. Although we started with positive reinforcement when we started training King as a puppy, we didn't stick with just positive reinforcement for very long. The reason for this is that we just don't feel like we would have been successful only using this method. This is because King is very stubborn. He is a guard dog breed and he acts like it. So he has behaviors such as barking at strangers. He is very protective of his household. If anyone comes even close to our front door, he starts barking and growling very aggressively. And also, he's very dominant in the household. He likes to try to get up on our furniture, and the same thing happens on walks that we often find he tries to lead us instead of us leading him. Because King is one of those really alpha guard dog breeds, we try really hard in our training to make sure that we establish a role of dominance over him. In order to gain the dominance over King in our household, we do a lot of things like making sure that we eat before he eats, walking in and out of doors before he can walk in and out of doors, and setting really clear expectations, as in not to let King make decisions that we haven't made for him. An example of this would be out on our walks. If he's super interested in another person walking on the other side of the street, we make sure that he's allowed to approach that person and just kind of guiding him in the direction that we were already going, because we had a set intention on our walk and he's not allowed to change that on his own. And we also don't allow King on any of the furniture that we use in the house. This is our personal take on the training. It's not to say that whatever you do with your dog is wrong. It just tends to work better for us because having King up on the furniture, which we did when he was a young puppy, gave him a little bit of a sense that he was equal with us, and he tended not to listen as well to our commands. As a really young puppy, we focused a lot on basic obedience commands with King. The things that we used most often were sit, stay, paw, and a little bit of puppy recall, but we were not super serious about it. We just wanted him to know when we called his name that he should come towards us. Just as a reference for everyone, when we brought King home as a young puppy, the COVID-19 pandemic had just started and everything was shut down, so there was no training available and we really had to focus on working everything out on our own at home. Right around the 4-month mark, we actually did manage to find a training facility for dogs that was open. Training facilities regulation is that no dog is allowed in the training facility or with a trainer one-on-one anywhere unless it has a prong collar on. Prong collar looks like this. It has these very blunted open ends that face into your dog's neck. They are rounded and they are not sharp. Most owners use the prong collar to prevent pulling when your dog is walking or just in general taking your dog outside of the household. It gives the owner a lot more control. You are not exerting as much energy to correct your dog's action. The correct placement of the prong collar is to put it around your dog's neck inside, and the prong should be right up against the back of their ears. It should be placed really high on your dog's neck. For some dogs in intense or uncomfortable situations, the pressure can be very agitating and it can heighten the issue. The 6-month mark with King's training, we actually switched him over to an e-collar. The reason that we waited until 6 months is because it's recommended not to use any sort of electric training method with a dog under the age of 6 months just for safety. I just want to say before I really get into the e-collar training that I understand it's a very controversial method of training. A lot of people don't like it. It worked really well for us. I do believe if it's used correctly that it's not harmful to your dog. And before actually using it on King, the trainer that we work with did have us test it out on ourselves. No, this does not mean that I wore the e-collar on my neck. I understand it's a very controversial method of training. A lot of people don't like it. It worked really well for us. I do believe if it's used correctly that it's not harmful to your dog, and this is the way that our trainer explained the different feelings to us, and it worked really well for me to think about it this way. On the remote there are 2 different types of corrections that you can use. The first one is this T on the top of the remote. We refer to it as vibrate. Vibrate on the remote is a lot stronger than the other buttons. This I like to use when I'm training if King is doing something that I consider dangerous or just unsanitary. An example of this would be if King is drinking from a disgusting dirty puddle that might contain bacteria. I would use the T button. He hates the feeling of it. It's uncomfortable right up against his neck, and it's a strong pressure, so he immediately jumps away from whatever he's doing. The other correction that's on the remote is this S button. The S button is what we refer to as the shock. I want to reiterate that the shock does not hurt your dog. There are different levels on here. It goes 1 to 100, 100 being the strongest that you can shock, but in reality, the shock feels a lot more like a tickle or a really uncomfortable itch that you just can't get rid of. We use this type of correction for unwanted behaviors. This could be anything from breaking heel on our walk to blatantly ignoring a command that we're giving him. I think that the e-collar is an awesome tool to use with larger breed dogs, especially because I know you can't see my whole body from this video, but I'm approximately 130 pounds. King is 130 pounds. That doesn't make for great physical corrections. Let's be honest, sometimes I am not physically strong enough to correct King's unwanted behaviors at all. My favorite thing about the e-collar is that you can correct unwanted behavior from your dog without being right next to them. I don't know about anybody else on this YouTube channel, but King is the absolute best at getting all the way across our backyard and then doing unwanted behavior when he is 40 to 50 feet away from me.
King, come! Good boy!
But he responds really well to the e-collar, so if I correct his unwanted behavior from across the yard, he will come right back over to me and look to see what I want from him next. So in the end, we do use a little bit of positive reinforcement training with King, and then mainly we use prong collar and e-collar training methods. I hope that somebody benefits from the making of this video. If anybody wants me to go more in depth on anything that I mentioned or on any of the training methods, or just has basic suggestions on videos that you would like to see in the future, please do comment below. I would love to hear from you. Of course, please make sure to like and subscribe. Bye guys!